So instead of going to a bank to get a loan to buy a property, you have the seller now finance the property for you. They become the bank, which those are primarily, say, debt-free properties. So these are people in like good financial standing. So, you're solving a problem to not just talk about, somebody in a financial challenge, but you're talking about solving a problem with a real estate problem. So you have seller financing. And then you have subject to deals, which you mentioned very earlier in this call, which was instead of going to get a new bank loan to pay off the original seller, we just keep the current bank loan in place and we make payments on the seller's behalf, which gives us access to, 2, 3, 4, 5% interest rates, which allows us to make money today where a higher interest rate wouldn't cash flow on this property.
Welcome to the Real Estate Mogul MD podcast. Thanks for tuning in and taking control of your financial future. This is a show where we not only motivate and inspire, we give you actionable real-world experience to help you live life by design. You'll hear journeys and stories from other physicians, investors, coaches, consultants, and entrepreneurs. And now, here's your host, Brett Riggins. Today, I'm joined by Zachary Beach, CEO of Smart Real Estate Coach, an expert in creative financing and real estate investor who went from bartending to building a multi-million-dollar real estate business. We're diving into how creative financing works, why it's a game changer in today's market, and how busy professionals like physicians can start investing without using banks or large amounts of cash. Here we go. Here we are. We are here. This is kind of like episode number 2. So first of all, we introduced Wicked Smart a while back, had a little conversation, and then today's guest, we had the opportunity to meet. So here we are. Without any further ado, everybody, welcome Zachary Beach to the show.
Hey, Brett. Excited to be here, my man.
Man, how's it going?
Living the dream.
Man, I'm stumbling on my words a little bit because I thought I was cool and, I get to call you Zach. And then I'm like, I'm going to introduce everybody, to everybody. I'm going to call you Zachary. But is it okay if I call you Zach?
Yeah, we're friends now. We're good.
Awesome. Well, that's great, man. Well, I mentioned it there just briefly, Wicked Smart. And so first of all, for the listeners who didn't catch that first episode, what is Wicked Smart?
Yeah, well, smartrealestatecoach.com, or we're known as our Wicked Smart community, because we're up here in New England, so obviously going to be Wicked Smart. We share with people how to buy real estate without cash, credit, or banks. And really, that's also known as buying on terms or buying on creative financing. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is maximize our investors' ability to solve problems. Because when you buy real estate with creative financing, you have the tools that most traditional investors do not have, so we can solve a lot more problems, which of course leads to a lot more profits.
And I love this because even if you have money, it's always good to look at the creative options, because we're looking at a portfolio right now where the loans are probably about 4 or 5 years ago. Started and what happened 4 or 5 years ago? The rates were awesome compared to where they're at now. So it's even ways that you could allow that seller to cash flow above with those mortgages in place. So lots of fun stuff that's happening there. But first of all, let's jump back a little bit. So I heard you went from bartending and personal training to now running a multi-million-dollar real estate business. What inspired that jump?
Yeah. Well, inspired that jump was necessity, right? So I was a bartender and personal trainer. So as you can imagine, I was working super late nights, and then I was working really early mornings. And I started that at about 21 years old, and I did that all the way to almost 25. And I got super burnt out. So I knew that I needed to figure out a different way to get ahead. Now, I'm sure many of your listeners can feel that exact same way, whether you're in your early 20s or in your 50s or 60s at this point. And so I looked for an alternative method. And of course, I was lucky enough that a family member, or my father-in-law, who's in real estate for 20 something years up until, that point. And he started this new real estate business, doing creative financing, because he got crushed in 2008. So I approached him and said, hey, I don't know if I'm going to like real estate, but it's going to be better than what I'm doing right now. And so then I jumped in, joined the family business. That was a decade ago, and kind of burned the ships Cortez style about 4 months in when I was pretty close to getting my first deal. And from there, it's kind of been history.
Interesting. And for the listeners too, to go back, that's actually Chris Prefontaine is your father-in-law, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And this could be a whole nother show too, Zach, working with family. And especially in that dynamic of father and son-in-law, kind of dynamic, but not to get there. So you started with the company. Where did you start? Did you start like in our company, kind of like that entry sales was cold calling and acquisitions? Is that something that you did?
Oh yeah, I was handed a list of expired listings and it was handed that, and basically what we call a property information lead sheet, which is like 10 to 12 questions. And he's like, make cold calls, call these people and get me enough information. And once you do that, then we'll try to see if it makes sense for us to work towards trying to buy this particular property. But yeah, I would spend. So when I first started, I would spend. So I'd bartend at night, and I'd wake up early morning, and then I'd have a power nap, and then I'd make phone calls in the afternoon, and then I'd have another power nap, and then I'd get ready for my night again. And I did that for, say 4 months. And then eventually I quit. And then I started literally making phone calls for 40 to 50 hours a week. Because at that point in time, we only got to eat what we killed. So I wish I could tell you it was this glamorous, like my father-in-law had this amazing business and I stepped right into being a director or executive when I started getting paid really well. No, we were building this from the ground up. He only been doing it for about a year or so previous. So I stepped in, started doing some real estate deals with Nick and Chris's support. And then eventually over the next 18 to 24 months, then took over the entire front end acquisition side, built up a team, built up VAs. And then we started getting to the point where we were doing about 4 to 10 deals a month for quite some time before we really started growing our coaching company as well.
Yeah. And if you want emotional roller coaster, and I'm sure the physicians in traumatic situations can experience this. I mean, you're basically injecting yourself into some of the worst moments of people's life when we're talking about distressed sellers.
Sure. Yeah.
And then doing it, when I say inject, sometimes that's what you're doing when you're cold calling too. So it is absolutely miserable. And to be able to get up and do it again every single morning and have the resilience to go through that, I mean, that takes something. So kudos on that to push through. And now as CEO, hey, what was the biggest challenges you faced to make that jump from the cold calling position, kind of like, bottom of the drawer all the way to the sitting in the office chair?
Well, it's a lot, right? It's a lot of it was being naive, right? When you first get started and as an entrepreneur in general, and I was doing that at 24 years old when I started. There's a lot of things you don't know. So the biggest jump has been, learning the ins and outs of not just my position, but the ins and outs of everybody's position. I was lucky enough where I did start with zero real estate experience. So I had to learn everything from just being able to simply talk to people to the rules and laws of real estate to how deals are structured to what the heck mortgages were, how they operated, to then eventually growing a team, to then being able to manage assets in a portfolio, to then go through some pretty significant ups and downs in just that portfolio, to then also going through COVID, which was a completely different experience in real estate as well. And doing that at the same time as growing and understanding our entire real estate investment portfolio, but then also growing and scaling at the exact same time our real estate, coaching company at Smart Real Estate Coach. So the biggest thing I think was just really, learning the skill sets of being a business owner and an entrepreneur to eventually be able to, lead and guide and build the team, which is what I spend a majority of my time doing now, which is really like setting the vision and building the team and getting the resources together to ensure that we consistently are hitting our goals on all fronts.
Yeah. And doing this all based off of the creative financing platform. Sure. Can you tell us just generally speaking, the terms of what does it mean to buy on terms? How do terms work?
Yeah. So just to give again more context, if you didn't listen to the one with Chris Prefontaine, was look, in 2008, he had 24 condo conversions happening and it crashed, right? It went from to about a third in value. So in order to get back involved in real estate investing, he was searching mentors and groups and trying to figure out how do you get involved, coming out of that type of space. So the only way he could is creative financing, which means that he wasn't going to use banks, right? So no banks, no personally guaranteeing debt, and not putting down large down payments. So that's in theory like what it is. So now what do? Is now we have a couple different strategies that incorporate those three main, kind of terms here, which you got seller financing. So instead of going to a bank to get a loan to buy a property, you have the seller now finance the property for you. They become the bank, which those are primarily, say, debt-free properties. So these are people in like good financial standing. So, you're solving a problem to not just talk about, somebody in a financial challenge, but you're talking about solving a problem with a real estate problem. So you have seller financing. And then you have subject to deals, which you mentioned very earlier in this call, which was instead of going to get a new bank loan to pay off the original seller, we just keep the current bank loan in place and we make payments on the seller's behalf, which gives us access to, 2, 3, 4, 5% interest rates, which allows us to make money today where a higher interest rate wouldn't cash flow on this property. So it's not only really good if you don't have the capital or if you don't have the credit, but it's really good to be able to just be a good, deal structure where you're using better debt and keeping it in place. So that's subject to deals. And then we have lease options, which is basically just controlling an asset without ownership, which is like your true no money down deal where, you can step into a property, control it, and really be able to then cash flow it without actually dealing with any type of closing. So those are our three main strategies in regards to acquiring properties.
Hey, Zach, what was that third one you said? Can you repeat that?
A lease purchase or a lease option?
Lease option, yeah. Is that sometimes considered like the master lease approach?
It could be, right? It depends on how it's used in context, but if you look at a master lease, you're really talking like commercial properties where, you're trying to control an entire building, or with a lease. But you don't have ownership. So the terms are pretty similar there.
Lease option. Very cool. And with today's market, where we're at, I feel there's kind of like a little shift. There's always unknowns, right? There's always change in administration and politics and all that stuff. Where are we sitting right now? Like, what are you guys feeling on the acquisition side that is hitting right now?
Oh, man. We are at a point now where I'm so lucky we started 10 years ago, because the market has just been primed over the past 24 months. It happened a lot during COVID. We had some giant spikes of people were scared and needed alternative options because they didn't want to show properties. That's kind of faded away. And really what we've discovered now is the true essence is with high interest rates, there's a lot of properties that people can't get out of, meaning they're trying to sell to somebody that has to go get a high interest rate. And that particular person, now this asset doesn't make sense to them. And even if it did, if they wanted to move into as a homeowner, their debt to income ratio, they might not even allow them to be able to go get a loan at that point. And then you have all of these people that are in distress, which, it's the average American has a 650 credit score or less. It's like 70% of Americans. You have the highest that they've had since 2012 in credit card debt. You have the highest amount of defaults on company loans since 2008. So these are these companies that are failing, right? Or having challenges. So you have all these distressed people that need help. And it's hard for them to get out of them. So using these creative financing strategies now gives a solution. Oh, and by the way, the people that are distressed have good loans. So now we're really able to create a solution because we as real estate investors can actually make profits if you know how to do it because there's good loans there. So at the end of the day, it's actually starting to feel easier. And I'm using that word lightly because real estate investing is nothing really easy about it. But easier for somebody that has little experience to be able to step in because there's more opportunities now to be able to solve that problem because there's so many people that are in distress.
Those distress notes, when you come across a seller that's, say, hasn't, kind of like in that foreclosure process through the redemption period. Now, again, this is going to vary in different states, obviously, but say through that redemption period, and they're calling like this is going to foreclosure sale, whatever it may be. What do you do when the deal still works? Do you just buy it outright or do you only focus on those, the creative finance situations?
Yeah, great question. So we want to move like 90 days prior, right, to having to deal with a foreclosure. Happy to deal with distressed, happy to deal with pre-foreclosures. But really the moment in which now I have to deal directly with buying from a bank that's going to be out of our hands at that point in time, especially in the creative financing strategies. What I'm looking for is the person that's behind on payments, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 months. And now we just step in, catch up their payments, and then keep their mortgage in place now that they have good debt. So that's one of the ways in which we certainly support people. But if you also think about, and then I'll kind of jump back. If you also think about it, over the past couple of years, a lot of people bought properties for the interest rate. They didn't buy it for the price, right? So a lot of people overpaid, especially in, especially a lot of these like centrally located markets. There's going to be certain markets like Southern Florida, Boston, LA, where there's going to be like the market's going to still continue to appreciate. But I'm talking about your everyday market here. So a lot of these sellers have zero equity or very little. So now we're just talking about stepping in to help somebody not have to pay to get out of a house, which is a huge thing. Circling back around to answer your question, I'm typically not dealing with a ton of cash offers buying directly from banks or REOs or anything like that. That's not something that we teach, even though, I'll buy and do some fix and flips and things like that outside of creative financing. But when we're looking at pure creative financing, we're trying to catch people previously before they actually get to that point.
And I'm sure that happens. Do you have some sort of referral network that allows you to monetize those kind of leads?
Oh, for sure. So I always tell people we live in an ecosystem, right? So I would encourage everybody to really hone in and master one skill. But as leads come in and they don't fit in your box, have the person that you're going to go ahead and distribute those leads to. Like, for example, I don't do a lot of wholesale deals. I've done maybe a handful my entire career. But I've done them when a deal comes into me and I'm like, it doesn't make sense for the creative offer. It's strictly going to be cash. So I go to my friend who's a big wholesaler and I say, hey, can we go ahead and can you dispo this deal? And he'd be like, yes. And I say, all right, well, let's create an agreement. So we split 50-50 on the dispo because I brought the lead in. I was able to make, $15,000 off of a deal that, I would have no business doing. So, and that happens, a couple times a year. So I'm a huge proponent of being a connector in the ecosystem so deals flow through you, because then I also get lots of creative deals from the wholesalers that are like, hey, this doesn't work as a cash deal. Is this something you're interested in doing? And I'm like, yes. And if we structure a deal, then we'll give you a referral. So then the deals just continue to flow through to and through you.
I love that ecosystem. That's what it's about. Expanding associations, building, because if you live in the shortage mindset, there's going to be nowhere for you to go. And that's where things just get rough. Many of our listeners are physicians or high income professionals looking for entry into real estate. What should be their first step?
Yeah, awesome question. So just like anybody, right? I'm not a big fan of investing in things I don't understand. So even if I have all the capital in the world, I'm not going to just go put it into a piece of real estate if I don't understand how it's going to work. So I would encourage everyone to do their research and dive in, and I'll make sure you guys get a free book when we hop off here, because I'm guessing all you physicians are going to want to be wicked smart, right? And we'll read books. So it's all about understanding how the deal comes about, right? Because then most physicians would be, my guess is, it's not that they're like, money, it's not like a shortage in money. Typically it's a shortage in time. So if we understand exactly how the deals work, then now, even as the physician, you can pinpoint the deals that are going to fall into your time frame for you to be able to create money on, and whether that means no money down or that means that you put some money into it. But I can almost guarantee you that even if you have to put some money into the deal, it's going to be significantly less than if you go buy something with traditional financing. It's also going to be significantly easier for you to scale your portfolio because you're not personally guaranteeing the debt. And you don't have to keep going back to the bank or keep putting down that 20% to get that traditional loan. And it's honestly going to more than likely cash flow significantly better as well because you're getting better interest rates because there's loans that are 3, 5, 10 years old that you're acquiring. So learn first, then understand how you can best maximize these strategies in your current business model or to get into your first deal. And then from there, continue to grow it.
You talked about time, and that is definitely one of the biggest challenges across the board. Now, we all have the same amount of time in a day. Yep. It's what we focus on or what we put priority that really changes and shifts things around. But if we're keeping the one thing in the world of a physician, how do I do it? Like, I'm sure you guys have built an amazing community. You've done so many different speaking engagements, different events. Sure. You've got to have some experience with physicians and with people who have that full-time job. What are some of the ninja tips that allows them to, deal with that time constraint?
Yeah, I love that you bring this up because it's like, 90% of our community are doing this part-time, right? And maybe it's even their first deal that they're trying to get to part-time. So time is always a challenge, whether you're a physician, a manager, entrepreneur, whatever that may be. So some ninja tips would just be, being able to maximize the time in which you have available would be first and foremost. That's why I started out with making sure that you understand how the deals work. Because the more deals you do, the more you can do deals in your sleep after you do a whole bunch of them, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then it's maximizing the right resources and putting the right systems in place. Like if I'm a physician and I know like I have an hour a day to work on this business model, then I want to be working with or communicating with the most likely deals, right? So it's being able to hire the right virtual assistants. It's being able to put the right CRM in place. So that way I can now create a bunch of drip and automation for these things to work with me when I'm unable to be there. And then being able to focus on the key money producing activities, which is going to be solving problems and structuring deals. And quite frankly, is the best and most fun thing when it comes to real estate investing. So just systems and processes is the most important, and then constantly fine tuning your skill set. So that way you can make the phone call when you're in the car and not lose out on the conversation, or be able to go present yourself to a seller, review a property and make an offer relatively quickly so we can, continue to keep that deal moving forward.
Yeah. And you mentioned CRM systems. What are some of the top CRM systems that your community, is happy to use?
Yeah, we primarily use REI Black Book. A good friend of mine, Damon Remy, he has been extremely helpful when it comes to that particular CRM and has built out, with the help of our coaches, some very particular and custom workflows specifically for our creative financing and specifically based upon what we call our 7 steps to a take-in and our continued exit strategy on rent to own. So he knows our business inside and out. So we've been able to really create and streamline that. So we continue to stick with REI Black Book.
Very cool. REI Black Book. And CRM is an acronym for client relationship management software, right? Like it's typically a SaaS that's offered, and there are all different kinds. Sure. And through the years as an investor, like going through these different phases of development and integration and automations, and ultimately the monster was at Salesforce is kind of like that everybody's got their kind of own version. And it sounds like working with that developer enabled you to build out exactly what you're looking for. And that's so cool. And it's probably part of this. Smart Real Estate Coach has grown into 3 times a Inc. 5000 company. Is it stuff like this or that gives you the opportunity, or what are the key principles that have allowed you to scale successfully like that?
Yeah, I'm a huge proponent when it comes to like finding results, right? So if we can get our community to produce the results that they're hoping for, then it's just going to naturally grow in itself. Because quite frankly, there's probably easier ways for us to grow and scale by simply just selling more product or, hosting bigger events. But we have since day one, we believe that we had to fully immerse people in the business in order to get them to the results. So we create a super support system where we'll literally be doing deals in the trenches with that particular person so we can help them get deals more quickly than they would if they just were basing it on their own skill set, their own system. So by doing that and by helping people get from 0 to 1 or 1 to 10 when it comes to their deals, that is then, allowed us to then spread the word when it comes to the success that our community is seeing. And then from there, as more and more people continue to come into our community members are the ones that are actually continue to help us evolve in our systems and processes, because everybody else comes from these different backgrounds. Like for REI Black Book, that was brought to us for one of our community members. He said, hey, I'm a part of this group, and this serum I think is going to really help you guys. Let me make an introduction to the owner. So we did that. And another community member stepped in and said, hey, look, I know it's really hard for, the investor that has like one deal or like 5 deals to be able to properly use systems to market their properties or to be able to collect rents or develop the right reporting without being too expensive. So he actually developed what we call Prosperity.io, which is a platform that gets access to usually people that only have at least 500 deals and above. And we brought it down to the average investor. So now that's developed. So by allowing your community to participate in the evolution of the company, that has been what's really allowed us to grow and scale.
And how about mindset? How does that play a part in this? Like what mindset shifts separate investors who succeed from those who just never take action?
Yeah, it's all of it. I mean, we interviewed Brian Tracy one time, and we always said that it was 80% mindset, and he was like, no, it's 90% mindset at least. And you continue to see that because, and if we just bring it down to like the most simple version, right? There's the fixed and the growth mindset. Like the physician that's listening to this and says, well, I don't got time. I'm happy where I'm at. I don't want to get uncomfortable and potentially start a business and get more involved in real estate to propel, my retirement. They're not going to be the ones that are going to come join the community, right? Mm-hmm. It's the one that's listening right now that's like, oh my God, if I could get 10 deals and I could do that and I could do that over and over again for the next 10 years, I would be worth $10 million. And how do I do that? Right. So it's that growth mindset that then propels that forward. So what does that actually mean? That means that we get when it comes to mindset, we have to be able to help people realize their current behaviors and how to change them, because the behaviors are going to produce the results. And then we got to continue to help people work through the challenges that they're going to face as a new entrepreneur or a new real estate investor. Because as you mentioned earlier, there's a lot of things that are challenging and a lot of things are going to make you feel uncomfortable. So it's how do we constantly help people overcome the paradigms or, the behaviors that have created the results that they've gotten today and be able to help them evolve and change that. Because that is going to be the biggest thing. If they're not willing to grow mentally, then you're not going to produce any different results, long term.
Yeah. Yeah. There's pain. There's pain. Sure. Resilience is required. That's for sure, to keep on pushing. One way they could keep pushing is to learn more about creative financing and smart real estate coach. Where in the world do they find you? How do they do that? You mentioned a book.
Yeah, let's give everyone that's listening to this our first Amazon best-selling book. We got 3 of them, but this one really dives into our business model and also gives some background and context, as we wrote it many years ago and then we redid it right after COVID, so it was really relevant. It's called Real Estate on Your Terms. All you got to do is go to wickedsmartbooks.com/RE-mogul. That's wickedsmartbooks.com/RE-mogul. Go ahead and give us the information. We'll ship it out to you for free. And then you'll get a whole bunch of other really cool things, including some of our podcasts. That's Smart Real Estate Coach Podcast. We'll send you some links there as well while you're waiting. And then, of course, you can find us on all the major social media channels, including YouTube, which is our biggest one and quite frankly the most powerful. as we've been producing what we call Deal Structure Sundays. There's over 400 of them. We're probably approaching 450 now. We literally walk through the deals from start to beginning, from start to end, so that we can see how the seller was, how the buyer was, and how the real estate investor profited well. You can go to smartrealestatecoach.com/YouTube.
Very cool. And I heard you had a cool guest on there not too long ago. I think his name was Brett on that podcast. Little plug. Go listen to that podcast for sure.
Right.
Hey, man, it's been great. We'll put that .com in the description so everybody can check out that free book. Thank you for that. And man, best wishes for the community and to keep growing. I think what you said about why that community is growing is sharing in the growth, sharing in the knowledge. That economy of scale thing is just huge. And just, man, keep that up and just helping everybody find that path to disconnect time from money. It's just such a beautiful place to be.
For sure. No, Brett, appreciate you having me on. Excited to do some more things for you here in the future, I'm sure.
Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks again.
Yep.
Hey, thanks to Zachary Beach on that one. Lots of little knowledge nuggets and ninja tips in there for sure. Here's some of them that I caught in my bucket today. Creative financing allows you to buy real estate without using your own cash or credit. The best deals today come from understanding how to structure terms, not just buying traditionally. Physicians and professionals should invest in financial education first, then take action. If you want to dive deeper, grab Zach's book at wickedsmartbooks.com/RE-mogul. And that's going to be in the show description as well, too. Hey, until next time, as always, thank you for your time and more importantly, your attention. This is the Real Estate Mogul MD.